it. So to me, this is supply. This is the very first supply box we had for XRP ever in this zone. Took a couple years, about 4 years. And then, in my opinion, and I'll label these so you guys can see it, I'm going to put this into probably the monthly so we can see the whole thing at once. Yeah. And you won't, the first supply box is irrelevant, but it's down there. It's not irrelevant, but we broke out of it. So we have supply, we have distribution, in my opinion, and then you have demand. So supply, distribution, demand. So finally break out of supply, supply one. We get into distribution and people are like, oh, okay, well that's where you can buy or sell in distribution. Well, they're like, well, we broke out so much and you probably have a bunch of FOMO in here. So a bunch of people end up buying in here initially on that initial breakout. Well, when we got into from distribution to demand, there was no demand left in the third box. So supply, distribution, demand. In distribution, we had a lot of buyers because people are like, you know what? This is still a good deal. XRP came all the way from down here, flipping a couple zeros. Now we're looking pretty good. It gets into demand and everybody's like, this is way too fucking expensive. I'm not going to buy it here. In fact, I'm selling it. So you got a few people that's FOMO in, the fear of missing out, and that's where it all started. This is 2000, I want to see the exact date. December of 2017, we top out on XRP. Well, now we come back down, and when we get back into distribution, people are like, you know what? It's still way too expensive. I'm not buying here. I missed out at under a penny. I seen people buy it up here, and now it kind of looks like a head and shoulders. And for the ones who understand, they're looking at it saying, you know, we're in a fourth wave corrective now. There's no way I'm buying this distribution center. I'm waiting for it to go into a newfound supply, which it did. It found a new supply, we'll call this supply 2, right here. Well, when it went back into distribution, everybody's like, you know, that looks like a failed wave. Well, not everybody, but if you knew what was going on in the Elliott wave, you would say, that doesn't seem right. But this time when it went back into distribution, instead of having buyers like back here initially on the first breakup, sending it to demand, we came back down to when we came up to distribution the second time, there was nobody to buy. They all sold and said, nope, I've seen this before. And they for whatever reason, were wise enough to know, and they were right because it went into a WXY correction and it brought it into supply 2. Well, in supply 2, when we came back out of it into the distribution zone, everybody's like, oh my God, we're only in wave 1 still. This is a great fucking deal. We're buying this, especially if you understood the Elliott wave. They're like, this is just the first wave. We're only in the first wave. You know, first freaking wave. So they're like, we're buying the distribution this time. They got into demand and like, ooh, that seems like a good topping point for the demand or for the first wave of the Elliott wave. We're gonna have some volatility here. I'm gonna get off the train here for a second, right? So they're like, I'm gonna get off the train, which is understandable after having that kind of a distribution, demand back down to the supply 3. So now they're like out. Well, now some people have seen it come down and like, ooh. We've never seen it hold top of distribution. It's always come through distribution and come right back to the new supply zone. This is the first time in our history of XRP, going back to 2013, that we actually bounced off of distribution. Now when we got into demand zone, everybody, ooh. You know, as much as I would like to hold or buy, I think there's a lot of profit to be taken here. We know we're at wave 3, the end of it. And now we're going into a huge corrective wave 4 like we've done in past cycles. And if you were studied on your history, you'd be like, this is approximately 3.5 year wait. We don't know if it's going to be the same. But if we just go by the past, we're going to say, uh-oh, we might have to take 3.5 years here. So if we do, you wait until it bounces through now from demand. You go back to distribution and you see how it plays out. Some people are like, you know what? It's holding up pretty good. So they brought it back out, but it hasn't quite broke out yet. So you need it to get out of demand to break into discovery. So that's how it's got to be. We're going to have buyers in demand to get into discovery. My fear is that we drag on like we did before, maybe retest supply as support, and then bounce out. It seems a little odd that we won't bounce at all into the old supply zone and at least back test it. But it's not necessary because we could stay in distribution, and that would be like $1.38 approximately. We could come down to bottom of distribution, $1.33 even better. And that, if it comes to $1.25, that's fine. But it could stay there. Now, if it did bounce down here, that would give it one last spurt down to about 80 cents, which I probably more unlikely, but that would fill an FVG at 91. But I think we are looking to stay in distribution. I don't think we're looking to come necessarily down here. I think it would probably be more likely that you do something like this. But, you never know. And then I think ultimately we get to 549 because that's the target that we had out of the descending wedge going all the way back to November of 2017, breaking out until 24.